Less than 100 years ago, chemists first began to bend and reorder petroleum molecules into a lightweight substance that could be molded into just about any form. Since then, inventors have created hundreds of different plastics, and industry has found millions of uses for them. Today, more than 322 million tons of plastic are produced each year, up from just 1.5 million tons in the 1950s. If plastic was a country, it would be the world's 20th largest economy, bigger than those of Austria, Argentina, Egypt, and dozens of others. The world wants plastic. Look around you right now. Look at your home, your office, your street, and try to count the plastic articles. How high did you reach before giving up? That's just the stuff you can see. Beyond the naked eye is a realm of invisible plastic. On purpose and by accident, fibers, fragments, and chemicals infiltrate every aspect of daily life. Every start and stop of every car sends microscopic particles of styrene tire dust wafting into the air. Each wash of every single synthetic garment releases up to 1,900 microscopic plastic fibers into waterways. Every rinse of every paintbrush sends liquid plastic down the drain. Every straw and plastic bottle that rides the ocean waves will break down into fragments smaller than the diameter of a human hair. Plastic doesn't go away, it only gets smaller. Our bodies are 60% water. It's essential for life. People expect their water to be clean and free of harmful chemicals. We came to our research on microplastics with a simple question. Are they in our drinking water? We searched the available scientific literature and found not a drop of research addressing plastic particles in the world's tap water. So we created a study to look for plastic microfibers in tap water from more than a dozen cities on 5 continents. In 2015, Sherry Mason's pioneering research on microplastics contamination in North America's Great Lakes was used as the basis for legislation partially banning plastic microbeads in the U.S. Dr. Mason agreed to oversee Orb's study with researcher Mary Kasuth at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. Partners from around the world sent us samples they collected according to Dr. Mason's protocols. In all, we tested more than 150 half-liter bottles of tap water from places including Los Angeles, Jakarta, Indonesia, Kampala, Uganda, and London. What we found was astounding. Microscopic plastic fibers have contaminated tap water around the world, from Asia to Europe to Africa and the Americas. More than 80% of our samples contain plastic fibers as small as 1/10 of a millimeter. Fiber quantities found in Chicago samples were comparable with those found in Beirut. We found them in the water at the headquarters of the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. and at New York City Hall. We found them at the private Sloan Club in London and at Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. We even found plastic fibers in bottled water from 3 leading U.S. brands.
People were always like, is this in our drinking water? Is this in our drinking water? And I was like, I don't know. And I didn't really think that it was.
Experts say plastic fibers may enter your water supply by a number of routes. As we have seen, synthetic garments, which make up more than half the U.S. apparel market, shed fibers with every wash. They slip through sewage treatment plants and flow into lakes and rivers that may in turn provide drinking water to local communities. Airborne fibers are pulled down by rainfall into reservoirs and lakes. Experts say municipal water treatment facilities themselves may be contaminated with plastic fibers. The same may go for household plumbing and household filters.
You cannot have life without water. Sometimes we forget just like how essential that is and how important our water resources are. Without water, we don't have life. And so protecting our water and keeping it clean are like, there's really almost nothing more important than that.
I have 2 young kids. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but I worry about their future. I wonder what it's going to look like in 50 years. Global climate change is something that many of us are aware of at this point, but there are these other things like plastic and water that we don't know about.
For people around the world who participated in Orb's water testing, the results have been disturbing. In Ecuador, Mercedes Noronha told Orb she boils her tap water to protect against illness. Boiling kills most microorganisms, But experts say heat can actually make plastics release dangerous chemicals.
I mean, the pipes get old, the plumbing, and that is why there might be plastic in the water. It's bad. One hears so many things about cancer. I fear for the health of my family. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but I'm afraid of the things that come in the water.
We know that they're ubiquitous in the environment. We know that you're ubiquitous within living organisms, and we know the impacts that plastics are having on some of these organisms. And I think that that's enough of a reason to be concerned and to kind of raise the flag and think, let's start thinking about how we can deal with this, as opposed to waiting for all the data and then it's too late, right?
Once we established the presence of microscopic plastic fibers in tap water, we tried to learn how these fibers might affect human health. The short answer is nobody knows. Based on animal studies, scientists say there's good reason to be concerned. In 2013, microplastics researcher Mark Brown attended a meeting in Pasadena, California, where scientists and representatives of major apparel companies met to discuss ways to create synthetic textiles that are less likely to shed fibers in the wash. During a break outside the venue, Brown was approached by employees of a leading global brand.
Marketing and sort of legal people from their companies and went, is this the new asbestos? And I said, well, you've actually got a fibre item. It's more abundant than asbestos, and it's making up all of your products. And you've got additional chemicals added onto it.
Understanding that there's multiple kind of pathways for these plastic to make their way into humans, I think is the important aspect of this. How much water does a person drink in a day, either directly or indirectly, and what does that mean in terms of how much plastic they're ingesting, and how does that compare to, say, how much they might be ingesting through salt and through beer? And then you can add it up, too, because people don't just use salt in a day, or just drink water in a day, or just drink beer in a day. They're doing all of those things every day if you're in my world.
There have already been studies that have shown that plastic particles in the ocean, at least, can absorb other chemicals that are in the water.
And so if that plastic then gets ingested by an animal, there's concern that those chemical pollutants bound to the surface of the plastic could have an acute toxic effect to that animal.
So we set up an experiment to look at, if we expose fish to plastics that have been floating in the bay, that have accumulated these contaminants, do the contaminants transfer and do they cause an impact? We found that they do.
And it became clear very early on that, the plastics would release those chemicals, and actually the conditions in the gut would facilitate really quite rapid release.
What we don't know is what the implication that might have for human health. It surprised us how readily plastics can be ingested. We're then starting to work out, well, do these have any adverse effects? Is there anything that's particularly bad to the animal about having plastic in its gut? Or is it more that the plastic can bring contaminants from the surrounding water and release them into the tissues? We know from those studies that there are a number of plastics-associated chemicals that people do have present in their bodies. And we're starting to get a feel for the potential for those to cause adverse health conditions.
Isn't that really crazy that we've been using these plastics since the Second World War, new ones keep on being developed, and a whole host of other chemicals, but we haven't got basic understanding about whether or not these cause problems.
For waterside strivers who depend on the seas and lakes for their livelihood, the notion of plastic fish inspires dread and denial.
My name is Kanaya. I am 50 years old. I have been living here for... How long is it actually? It's been a long time, maybe 20 years. I came here to earn money, to feed my family, to start a business. I was a farmer in my home village. Then I came here. I started out shucking mussels myself. Then I got my own workers, and now the business has grown. We are still poor, but we earn enough to eat every day. Yes, mussels have given us a way to eat if we can find them out there in the sea. But if we can't find them, then we have nothing to eat.
We were talking to some scientists in America and in UK and other places, and they say that when they look at the mussels in America and Australia and UK, that the mussels have inside them tiny, tiny, tiny bits of plastic. That the plastic in the sea breaks into little bits, and the mussels take them in. What do you think of that?
I've never heard of such a case. I have been here for so long, and I have never heard of mussels eating plastics.
It's not just that you're exposed to plastic. From the moment a child is born nowadays, it's already been exposed to 300 synthetic chemicals. Any human health effects that you're going to experience as you get older to tease out what the ultimate source of those was. There's no way to tease it out. And this is what, quite frankly, industry uses against us. They're like, against us. This is what industry uses against the argument of being concerned about these chemicals.
Every day, about 15,000 new chemicals are added to the Chemicals Abstracts Registry. More than 1,000 enter the market each year. But fewer than 1% are tested by the government.
If you're going to release a product into the environment, we really need to know what it does to humans.
So we've never really considered that risk before.
We have enough data from looking at wildlife and the impacts that it's having on wildlife to know if it's impacting them, then how do we think that it's not going to somehow impact us? There are certain commons that connect us all to each other: air, water, soil. And what we have universally found time and time again is if you contaminate any of those commons, it gets in everything. It's so ubiquitous that it's everywhere. It's in our air, it's in our water, it's in our food, it's in our salt, it's in our beer, it's in our bodies.
Dagupan City is best remembered by some as the landing site of a U.S. Army Liberation Force during World War II. Located on the South China Sea, it's also famous for its local variety of a beloved Philippine staple, the milkfish. But if the coveted milkfish is Dagupan's pride, the city's shame is a 50-year-old garbage dump sitting atop the town's gorgeous Pacific beachfront. Most of the dump's biodegradable waste has long since turned to muck and gas. What's left is a 42,000-ton mountain that feeds plastic into the ocean on coastal winds and during the island's many storms. Waste pickers scramble across the 7-acre eyesore in search of metal and plastic to sell recyclers. Today, the dump is on fire, releasing toxic plumes over the city. In 2013, Dagupan elected its first woman mayor. Belen Fernandez took immediate aim at the seaside pile. She found an ally in a U.S. company, Waste to Worth Innovations.
The number one problem really here are the plastics. The plastics of 50 years and up to today. The most important thing always is we will have a clean river, a clean sea, a clean beach, and a healthy life for everyone. When there is no plastic anymore. I know this is the only hope that we have.
If Mayor Fernandez gets her way, Dagupan's garbage will feed a new waste-to-energy plant that will supply diesel fuel to the local fishing fleet and natural gas to the city's motorcycle taxis.
Dagupan is always my favorite city to illustrate the ocean plastics issue because it's so obvious. You could see literally how close the end of this dump site is to the beach. One big typhoon, whoosh, out it goes. This is a crisis that we have to deal with now. I will be very happy to see one day that all of this dump will be gone. And I would like to make sure that our people will be safe and will live a healthy life.
Dagupan's waste-to-energy plant will use a process called pyrolysis to turn plastic into fuel. Waste is superheated in a sealed chamber, causing the plastic to break down into hydrocarbon-rich gases, which are then condensed into liquid diesel fuel. It's an anaerobic process, purer than burning, engineers say. No smoke or pollution escapes.
At first we didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. Dagupan only takes in about 30 tons of trash a day, which isn't much. It's very hard to make the economics work with only 30 tons of trash a day. So we came back up here and we did a lot of due diligence, analyzed their trash, analyzed their economy, said, okay, I think we can come up with something that works for you. We realized that waste to worth was not just about big cities and big trash. Dagupan is our prototype for the small city. If we can get it to work here, I can tell you we can get it to work anywhere.
Nearly 10,000 kilometers away, at Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, Dr. Noble Banata is leading a team of students as they transform their own waste to worth.
Our aim was to design small-scale stores that people in urban centers, especially the urban poor, can begin businesses, run businesses, where they collect plastics, melt them, so it's reverse engineering. The process of making plastics, we reverse it to go back to the diesel.
Plastics are inherently recyclable. What's preventing us from recycling more, I'd argue, is inadequate, inappropriate, or if you like, a lack of proper consideration at the design stage for what's going to happen at the end of life. If we think about plastics, the benefit they bring is completely decoupled from all of the harm. We've had 60 years of research and development and 60 years of behavioural training from the products we get on the supermarket shelves to regard things as single-use, disposable, throwaway. We need to bring together those that are responsible for end of life with those that are responsible for designing at the beginning of life.
We're not saying get rid of your fleece, we're just saying, is there a way that we can make fleece better? Is there a different material we can make it out of that doesn't have the impact? Is there things that we can do on our washing machine so that, we're not releasing all these fibers into the water? It really is that kind of a choice where we're perpetually being faced as a society between clean air, clean water, clean soil, and business as usual. I'm not saying we have to go back to the Stone Age, but we had a life before plastic, and it was a good life.